Captain's Log, Stardate 43462.5. We have beamed aboard an apparent Romulan defector who claims to be a low-ranking logistics officer with extraordinary information about a secret offensive. And our hailing frequencies are once again open. Welcome back, friends and podcast fans and Trekkies, to another episode, the first in a while, of the Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast. I am your usual host, Captain Mike Wilson, here aboard the Good Ship Hit or Miss. I am not with my usual number one DK. He's actually sitting this one out. I think he's grown weary of those sneaky Romulans and decided to take a little break. But fear not, he will be back when we have our next episode, I believe. And also, don't worry, I'm not here doing this on my own. I would never subject you to that. So I do have a couple of good guests who are here to talk all things Star Trek and to break down another Romulan-themed episode, which we will get into later. So first of all, please welcome our first guest, who is a complete newbie to the podcasts of any kind, but a huge Star Trek fan and somebody I was put into contact with as from other fellow Trekkies on social media. Please welcome Elle to the show. Welcome.
Hello. Well, I'm actually not quite new to podcasts, and I have been told by my friends from my German podcast I'm part of a group called Trekgasm. And they send their kindest regards to you, Michael.
Awesome. Oh, thank you.
Yes, well, yesterday we were talking about the latest Discovery episode, so we're covering that. So, yes.
Oh, yeah, we'll be getting into that later in the year. We're definitely doing a top Discovery episodes and a full series review later on, so stay tuned for that if you're a fan.
Yes.
Yeah, it's nice to finally meet you, and hopefully we'll ask a few Trek questions of you that won't be too hard for you.
Answer, I think I'll survive that. Yeah.
And this is a bit of a sort of dual special episode, because as well as a first-time guest, we have a first-time guest to this podcast. But if you listen to our sister podcast, the Silver Screen podcast, you'll have heard him on a few various reviews. So please welcome, for the first time to Star Trek, Tobi. Welcome, Tobi.
Hi, I beamed myself to this podcast, and now I invaded this lovely scene.
Absolutely, yeah. Tobi's been on various reviews on the other channel, usually geeky Marvel and superhero stuff, but also Akira, Ready Player One. So you'll have heard him on a few reviews, and he's always active in our Discord, where I've been trying to rope him into watching some Star Trek. And when this opportunity came up and there was a spare seat, so to speak, I was like, Tobi, do you want to watch an episode that I think is a good little standalone thing? So for you, it's going to be all new, Tobi.
Yeah, but I initiated that. I asked for a place of some sort. Yeah. Because the next time I'm on the other podcast is so long, and I'm like, I want to do it again.
You just like chatting to me, don't you? So there you go. Awesome. Well, as I say, if you are happening to be joining us for the first time and you're new to the podcast, welcome. It breaks down into little sections that I just keep us moving along with. And the very first section is probably going to be a bit of a quiet one for you, Tobi, because there's not a lot I can really do as a sort of new Trekkie. But I like to get to know our guests a little bit before we dive into anything via a section that I call Hailing Frequencies Open.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
So... Yeah. That's right. I'm just that nerdy. I have graphics and names and everything.
Wonderful.
So, the first question that I always ask the guests for the first time on the show is, what first got you into Star Trek? Do you remember your first experience with it? And what grabbed you and made you into a fan? And again, Tobi, this is going to be a very brief conversation for you. So I'll go to you first, Elle, and ask if you can recall your first experience.
Well, the first experience for me was, with Star Trek. The very first thing was watching the original series 1 or 2 with my best friend at his place. And at that time in Germany, we didn't have that many television stations, and we couldn't get, I didn't have cable TV yet. So he had cable TV, and there was one of the stations was showing the original series, and I knew of Star Trek, of course. And then at the very, very early 90s, I was then blessed with getting the first run of The Next Generation. Okay. And my family, all of us are huge science fiction nerds, I must also say. And
excellent.
Yeah, I was brought up on it because even my grandparents were into it, like Doctor Who and Hitchhiker's Guide and
brilliant.
all the stuff, and Star Wars and you name it. And it was just something that was, I was born into liking things like that. So, and then Next Generation first aired, and my family was especially chuffed, you could say, in northern English, because Patrick Stewart was in it, and he's from the north.
That's right, yeah.
And so my parents were going, "Oh, the captain's from where we're from. That's going to be really good."
Yeah, I think we all just ignore the fact he's supposed to be French, really, don't we?
Yeah, exactly, and he drinks, and then he drinks Earl Grey.
Absolutely, awesome, cool.
Yes, and that's how I got into it, and then as a sort of, it was on every day. After school at 4 o'clock after school, I knew every day the Star Trek on. So that was like a highlight after school. That was just, I was at a school where the teachers were really good, but most of my classmates were how do you say, a little bit not the kindest people.
Oh yeah, well, very. We are from the generation where being a geek wasn't quite as fashionable as it is perhaps nowadays.
May I ask how old you are?
Me, I'm 41, almost 42.
40.
So
okay, so you're also a Xennial. You see, I'm 45.
Yeah.
So
that's fair enough. Roughly the same.
Yeah, exactly, same generation. And so of course it wasn't very chic to be a geek, and especially as someone who appears to be a girl, and then that girl not talking about My Little Pony and whatever horses, and had loads of horse girls in my class. Wonderful. Yeah, good for you, enjoy your horses. But I wanted to talk about spaceships, and all the boys were not all of them, but lots of the boys were gatekeeping it from me because that's not the girls. Absolutely ludicrous. It's absolutely not bad these days, thankfully. But,
I think it's gotten better, to be honest, nowadays, thankfully. But it's just definitely one of those things.
It was just so bad, and I was glad at home. I had my best friend who lived in the same street as me. I'm still friends with him, and we met over the old Battlestar Galactica series. That's how we became friends. Yeah, the old one.
Usual co-host is going to be gutted he missed this because he loves all of that really old, like 70s and 80s low budget sci-fi stuff. So you would have got on with him.
Yes. Oh yes, we were into all that stuff because that was on at the time. And then Next Generation came, and we were both sucked into it straight away. And it was just no discussion. We were talking about it, and then in my hometown in Germany, in the south, there's something that they have in Germany. It's called Trek dinners. They're not as often anymore. There used to be a lot of them in the 90s, but the one I belong to still exists, and we've been going for 30 years.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
A group of just hardcore sci-fi, not just Star Trek. We talk about anything science fiction, fantasy, and all the fandoms, but mainly Star Trek. Yeah, and that's sort of how let's say how I found my tribe, how I've got into Star Trek. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Tobi, I mean, I obviously you are not necessarily a rabid fan in the way that we are, and you're from a much younger generation. You're probably about half of our age, if not less. But you know, it's Star Trek, so there will be some kind of cultural touchstone there for you. So do you have a history of like Star Trek? How were you first aware of it? And other than just from being friends with me, what was it that made you decide to want to give it a go?
Well, first of all, my dad is a huge Star Trek fan, so there is something in the family, but it was never passed over to me. I don't know why. But he also hardly rewatches this stuff anymore. He's just watching the new stuff, and
Yeah, there's a lot to be fair.
He's more casual fan. Like he likes it a lot, but not like I'm going to dinners and conventions and all of that.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Of course. As long as you like any bit of Star Trek, if you want to, you can call yourself a Star Trek fan.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Tobi, may I ask how old you are, just so that we know about what generation you're from?
22.
Oh, a Gen Z, lovely.
Yeah.
Nice.
Tobi makes us all feel old.
Well, actually, I keep feeling that the Gen Zers are actually just a sort of a reboot of us Xennials, sort of this.
Possibly,
There's a lot in common.
Yeah, actually, myself and Tobi do actually have quite a lot of similarities in terms of things we enjoy, so maybe. Cool. Right, well, I've got a few questions that I'll have to ask to just you, Elle, because they wouldn't really apply to Tobi.
I still have something to say.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Right.
Because I don't know if it was Into Darkness, the movie, or if it was the second Amazing Spider-Man. Whatever came first was the first or second older movie, like old in the sense of for older people.
Right.
Because I was like, 10, 11 or something.
From the Kelvin universe, the Kelvin films.
Yeah. Either Into Darkness or Amazing Spider-Man 2 was the first movie for older people that I watched.
Movie for older
people. Yeah, you know what I mean.
The more mature film. More mature film. Yeah, the first mature film I watched was Alien. Yes.
I mean, if we want to go technically, it's the Star Wars movie, but like I watched all the Star Wars movies when I was like 4, I don't consider that.
No, Star Wars is for everyone.
Yeah, but like some of them are for 12 and up classified technically, but I don't count them because I watched them all when I was like 4. So
I watched them all when I was 10. So yeah.
Oh, bless. As I say, I have a few questions then for you, Elle. Sorry, Tobi, to make you just sit around for a little bit, but hopefully it won't take long. So the next question that I always ask sort of our known Star Trek fans is, if you had to pick 3 episodes or movies to show somebody that you think represents the very best of the franchise, what would they be?
Okay, what would it be? It would start with In the Pale Moonlight from Deep Space Nine, featuring one of my favourite captains, Sisko, because I must admit, Patrick Stewart, fine, Picard, yes, I see what people love about him, but I'm a Sisko girl.
Okay.
Yeah,
fair enough.
And In the Pale Moonlight is just so brilliant, also just in itself as a dramatic hinge, and of the whole story of Deep Space Nine, and also featuring Romulans.
Of course, yeah.
And lots of sneakiness going on there. And otherwise, what would I also choose is what I also really, really, really love. One of my favorite episodes, that's from Discovery, season 2. That's Saints of Imperfection. From the second season. That's also a really, really good one that's just has lots of things going on. It's all very good natured at that point. And there's some absolutely funny dialogue in there that just keeps me laughing all the time. And it's
is that early in the season of season 2? Because I can't quite place that one.
It's the one where Section 31 help the Discovery stay in the universe and not fall into the mycelial network.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the other ones are going in to rescue people.
They're kind of going in to rescue Culber and...
Well, rescue Tilly, and then they find Culber, exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's some of that dialogue between Georgiou and Pike, and then Pike and Leland. It's just so funny. And in the end, where you've got Cornwell just sort of telling Captains Leland and Pike just to stop bullshitting around, and you notice that they actually know each other and they actually like each other, and they should just stop being so stuffy. And you get to see one of my favorite ships is that Section 31 ship. That stealth ship. I've got an Eagle Moss model here.
Oh,
it's so beautiful.
I love anyone that collects models because I'm obsessed with those.
Yes, I don't have many models because I don't have the space for it. But I thought, okay, if I've got models, I've got the Section 31. I've got a really old model here. It's from the 80s it's even made of metal. It's an old Star Wars now, an Imperial Star Destroyer.
Oh, nice.
Those two I've got here. And I want to, as a third piece, I want to get the Romulan-themed from Expanse. Then I'm happy.
Oh, yes. I know you can definitely get that on the Eagle Moss website. And things. I've seen it. So,
and that's great. My fandom trinity. And then I'm happy. I've got enough spaceships then. Okay, brilliant. Maybe a Defiant then. But otherwise, yes. What else? 3 episodes. Yes, so we've had In the Pale Moonlight, States of Imperfection, and then there's so many. Let me think. What's also sort of what really is nice, it just shows the everydayness of Star Trek is, I'd even say something, there's loads of them that are good. That I'll name a couple of them, sort of on the everyday level, is could be, what's it called again? Bar Association from Deep Space Nine with the Union. The Union episode, that's absolutely brilliant. Then you've got Data's Day from The Next Generation. That's absolutely wonderful. Also showing everyday things happening and what it's like on a starship or on the space station. And that could be 3, but there's so many other ones that I love. This is just very random. But I'd say
it's a bit of Sophie's choice narrowing it down to 3, I think, isn't it?
Because then there's so many other series, like the several Lower Decks episode I love. There's from Stranger Worlds some things that are brilliant. I think what it would be is if I'm sort of talking to a person, that person wants to get to know Star Trek, I'd go and see what type of genres they like, and then start with that. But I would always have In the Pale Moonlight in there though.
Awesome, cool. So I mean, you've kind of touched on my next question already, which was going to be, obviously this series is particularly looking at Romulan-themed episodes. So with that in mind, other than In the Pale Moonlight, is there any particular kind of Romulan storylines or characters that appeal to you?
There's several of them. I find Romulans to be very entertaining in their sneakiness, and I also think at this point I would say the Romulans deserve their own verb, to romulate. Because when you say someone is romulating and you're a Trekkie, you know what it is.
Sneaking around, clearly.
Being absolutely sneaky. And then this episode is just about how one Romulan was out-romulated by the other Romulans.
Absolutely.
But I think story arc, which I would say is a sort of story touch points, I think are the most, I find most impactful and good. Of course, you can start with Balance of Terror from the original series, which you could say is easily one of the top-notch early Star Trek episodes. And then I'd go on to this one, too, where at the end it's also about him leaving a letter for his wife and his daughter, which then can be handed over as soon as it's possible, which could have maybe happened during the Dominion War. And then you've got The Chase, where also at the end you've got the Romulan commander calling up Picard and saying, hey, we might not have that much we might have more in common than we thought, and then bids his goodbye. And then carrying on to Deep Space Nine, you have the whole In the Pale Moonlight, and then the Romulan Klingon and Federation Alliance, where they get a bit closer. And meanwhile, you have on yes, in TNG, of course, most important, you have reunification part 1 and 2.
Oh yeah, we've reviewed that. Yeah, sure.
Very important, exactly. And then you've got sort of the Romulans getting closer to the Federation during the Dominion War with Cisco and Garak's meddling.
Yes, yeah.
Because Garak, I must say, is a Cardassian that can also out-Romulate the Romulans. He's very good at
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, who used to be a gardener on Romulus. Yes. And then you've got also in Voyager, Eye of the Needle.
We also reviewed that.
That brilliant one where also sort of the Federation of Romulans start getting closer and sort of building up a bit of trust back in time, so to say. And then, of course, to Discovery, you've got Unification Part 3.
Oh, yes, another one.
Wonderful. And I would say sort of, and then, of course, you have with Picard, you've got the whole thing with rescuing the Romulans from the supernova and the whole empire collapsing because of that. But you could say you've got this sort of meta storyline of how these adversaries slowly become friends and then eventually part of the Federation. And yes. And awesome. I think that's what I would say on a big level. You can sort of
everything.
Everything. Well, not everything. There are some other ones, but yes.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, it is. I mean, when you put it like that, you can see kind of how they've evolved and a good through line of the stories for all of the series. So it's pretty good.
Yes. Because awesome. You still get things like, of course, she also comes up in Unification, but also the whole thing with Sela,
redemption.
Tasha Yar's redemption, exactly the way she's sort of trying to help the Duras against Gowron.
Awesome, fair enough.
Yeah.
So one last question then, and it's the big one that we like to ask everyone. I know there's more and more of them nowadays, but which is your favorite series, if you had to pick one?
Oh gosh, I think. Well, it depends on my mood, I must say.
Okay.
But I most gravitate to between different moods. I gravitate, of course, I watch TNG. I watch a lot of Deep Space Nine and Voyager. Sometimes Enterprise original series, not so much, but occasionally. And then there's, of course, I think the only bit that I don't have such a big connection to in Star Trek is the Kelvin films. They're sort of not exact. I say they're a great gateway for people who won't otherwise come into the fandom. So they're absolutely valid, but they're not my cup of tea at all.
So what would you say then was your favorite series then, gun to your head?
Yes, and then I've got then of course I like Discovery a lot, and I like Lower Decks a lot. Picard was hit or miss, and I belong to a very tiny minority. I think season 2 Picard was the most agreeable. To me.
Fair enough.
The story was the topics in there were handled more interesting than the others. I didn't like season 3 that much, except for Worf and Raffi and Seven.
Fair enough. Okay.
And otherwise, Strange New Worlds is lovely. It's like a TOS, but updated. And I still want to see how the whole run goes of that one. But Lower Decks, and I do enjoy Prodigy, and I can't wait to see season 2 on Netflix.
That's fair enough. So it just depends on your mood then as to what your favorite is.
I'm really bad at picking favorites because I'm also because of my job, I'm someone who's highly contextual, and
that's fine.
I need to think like that to do my job. That's why.
Oh, okay. What is it that you do, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm a communication designer. And I do branding and things like that. So if I have clients that want things, I of course have to go through all their contexts and go through all sorts of stuff, and I can start. designers often get very tired when clients say, "Oh, you're just telling me to choose this because you like it." And when a designer likes something, it's always highly contextual because it's always got to do with how something fits into a certain thing and how it works and bounces off all the other things that might already be there. So that's why I'm the worst person to ask to pick favorites.
That's fair enough. Okay. Well, that's fair enough. So we're going to move on to the next section then, which is going to be a little bit briefer than usual. The next section is the one that gives the podcast its name, and it is the hit or miss section.
What about my performance?
I'm not a drama critic.
And don't worry, Tobi, I've got visual aids, and it's all things that you can answer so that you can join in on this.
Ooh.
And apologies for keeping you waiting so far.
Very sorry.
So I won't have too many of these, but as I said, there's things that you could answer just to give us a quick hit or miss section to go forward with, and then hopefully after that we'll get on with talking about the episode in question, the Defector, as I should have said, from Next Generation. So first of all then, and I should say, by the way, when I do the hit or miss section, I try to sort of sprinkle in things related to the theme, so there will be some Romulan-themed things, but it won't be entirely that, because I like it to have a little bit of variety, and I don't want it to just all be one, thing. So the first thing on the hit or miss section for today is Romulan, and it is a ship, and it is from this episode, so that Tobi can answer. Hit or miss for the Romulan scout ship. And it'll hopefully appear on screen for you there now. And Tobi, because you haven't talked for a while, I'm going to come to you first. Do you think it's a hit or a miss?
I feel reminded of that one day where you just sent me 60 pictures of Star Trek.
Yeah.
But
you said something about every ship just based on pure, image and aesthetics.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. I like the color. The color is pretty. I like the design. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's a hit. It's a soft hit.
Soft hit. Okay. And how about you, Elle? What do you think of the Romulan?
I think it's sort of a hit because you just know it's Romulan. It's a baby Dederidex that's just hatched from its egg, and it's having its first flight through space. It's absolutely wonderful.
Awesome. That's cool.
It's a baby warbird.
It is. Yeah, I kind of agree with both of you on that one. I say it's a soft hit because I think the larger ships are nicer. The Dederidex warbirds that you see in the episode.
Oh, they are just legendary.
Oh, they're amazing. But I do like this in terms of, as you said, if you're just looking for something that can visually still be clearly Romulan, but it's smaller. It's a one-person, I assume, ship of some kind. And it just looks nice. I like it. It's grown on me a lot over the years because it looks quite simplistic, but then you realize, it's fine though. It does what it's supposed to. So,
and the visual language is just very clear.
Exactly. Yeah. I could have done with a bit more bird imagery because I lean more towards that with the Romulan ships. It would have been nicer to have more of a beak and maybe some feathers or something on it. But
it's very, very soft, but you can see the lines on it on the wing part. Just look like could be like sort of the way the lines are put is like stylized feathers.
But
it's just very subtle. It's a baby bird.
Fair enough. Well, that's a good start then, because that's all quite positive, and all three of us have fairly, succinctly given that a big thumbs up.
The next one.
Well, no, I've only got a couple more. So, the next thing is a character, and it isn't necessarily Romulan based, but again, hopefully, even if you've just seen this episode or a handful, you'll be able to answer. So, hit or miss. And you kind of already answered this in a way, Elle, but hit or miss for the character of Captain Jean-Luc Picard. And I'll mix it up and come to you first, Elle, for this one.
Yes, I think he's stuffy. He's got his priorities mostly right, but yes, he's a legend. Of course, you can not deny it. But even though I do sometimes drink Earl Grey, but he's not my favorite captain. But I, of course, know what he means, and he can be quite good. But yeah, he's a bit stuffy.
But still hit, I would say, probably from you. Yeah.
He's a bit stuffy for me.
Fair enough. But you wouldn't say he's a miss, though, would you?
Let's say a soft hit. Yes.
Okay,
another soft hit. Yes.
Fair enough.
Exactly. Good.
And what about you, Tobi?
I think based on 45 minutes.
Yeah, well, it's a good episode for Picard, though, to be fair.
And the fact that it's Patrick Stewart, you can't just say Mr. Patrick Stewart. That's a crime. It's a hit.
Okay, it's Sir Patrick Stewart, if you don't mind, but yeah.
Sir Patrick.
Awesome. Obviously, you can't really get into too much until we start talking about the episode. But I'm assuming you kind of liked what Picard went through. I guess in this episode, there was quite a decent exploration of, the job of someone that's in command. I think when it's a tense moment. So, yeah. Did you find yourself relating to that, Tobi, or
relating in what way?
Like, did you appreciate the kind of do you think Patrick Stewart brought enough gravitas to that kind of?
Of course. I was just too hung up on the relating part. I was like, in what way am I relating to this?
Well, yeah, I didn't necessarily mean relating. Like, naturally, you don't command a ship of like 1,000 people or anything, but at least I hope not. Fair enough. Yeah, everybody that knows me knows the answer to this. For me, I adore Captain Picard. I'm not as fond of him after the Next Generation in like the series Picard and stuff, but I think during Next Generation, I love it. I don't think you can go beyond.
I think I can go with you there too. In the Next Generation himself, he was quite good. He was he sort of set the scene for Star Trek in the 90s, and and what I think what I like about Picard and with Patrick Stewart is the whole Shakespeare thing, because I like Shakespeare. So the whole
randomly insert Henry V into an episode like this one.
And it's not that random, because it's also about a leader, a king, a commander wanting to get into the minds of the common soldiers. And that's the thing that Picard is thinking about, the same thing that our Romulan Defector is thinking about.
Definitely.
So it's a very nice
quote it as well, doesn't he? So,
Yes, and he himself, Patrick Stewart, plays one of the two characters
talking
about the battle, and that's just so good. So it still sort of does this little Shakespeare actor thing inside there. It's so meta level. I love it.
It is. I just can't believe they thought it was well enough disguised, because when I first saw this episode, I was like, why is Captain Picard doing that part? Because it's so clearly, even despite the kind of prosthetics and the accent that he's putting on, it's so obviously just Patrick Stewart. I'm like, do they really think he's disguising himself here? But, anyway. Right, so the third thing on the list is another ship, because, it's me. And again, there's not really a lot of choices we could go with, but Tobi, you've seen an episode with it in now. Hit or miss for the Enterprise D.
Oh, it's the big fat D. So, Tobi, what do you think of the big fat D?
Look at it. Iconic imagery. I don't know what's called, the big round thing is really cool. And what I really like is the bottom part. It's the lights are really cool. The red lights are really cool, but also the blue on the side, that's really nice. And also this little thing in the middle with the
that's the deflector shield.
No, it's a hit.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's just iconic, isn't it? But what about you then, Elle?
Of course, I love the D. The D is just a beautiful ship. It's gorgeous. I must say, that is just such a beautiful ship. And I love the interiors of the D. The style, it's absolutely gorgeous. And this is the point where I must admit, in my apartment here, I have sort of very subtly, not obviously, but this apartment is very subtly done up like quarters on the Enterprise D.
Oh, nice.
Very awesome. Subtle. When you know, if not, you can ignore it. And it's just like, I've got the same color of wall color, this beige, and I've got one sort of round painting on the wall that they have in the quarters there too. These round planet-like paintings and sort of spacey paintings everywhere else. Nice. A glass table and curved sofa, all that sort of late 70s, early 80s Italian style. That's what they put in there.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I've said this before, I love the interiors of the Enterprise D, but it is very, lobby of a hotel in the 80s.
Yes, of course, it's a very specific style. It's very, you could also say it's very vaporwave. You know what
it doesn't seem like a military kind of warship as such, does
it? Of course,
really?
it's supposed to be sort of this comfortable cruise ship that also can battle if it wants to.
Absolutely.
So,
no,
yes,
I mean,
and that's what I like about it. It's got its utility, but it's also got this whole plushness about it. And
for sure, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And I'm just a huge fan of the Enterprise D because it's not necessarily my favorite ship, but it feels like the one that I kind of grew up with because...
Yes, exactly. We grew up with the D.
Yeah. And because you get so used to seeing it, you find... Like, I didn't realize how kind of emotionally connected I was until season 3 of Picard. No spoilers.
Yeah.
And then I was like, it is...
Yes.
Yeah. it is kind of like,
And I must also admit that even though the Constitution class, like the TOS and the Strange New Worlds Enterprise, is of course iconic, the shapes aren't completely, for me, the shapes of the D, where it's a bit more streamlined. Now that's my type of ship. It's beautiful.
I do kind of like the contradiction that they were told, whoever was designed it was told to make it look organic and like all one piece, and then was told, oh, but by the way, it has to split in two. It's just
but these days,
looking at it, you wouldn't think this would be the one where the saucer would come off it, really, would you? But
yes, but I think maybe from well, that's also that type of design was something that was you could say in the air, in the zeitgeist then, because this sort of postmodern design also would go into sort of technical, futuristic, sort of space age style that does have that it looks like one, but it can split into several pieces. So
absolutely, yeah, for sure. Awesome. The last one today is going to be it'll lead us into our discussion of the episode because it's Romulan themed, it's a character, and I'm sure you all kind of can see where I'm going. Hit or miss for the character of Admiral Aladar Jarok. So I'll come to you first, Elle, because obviously I'm assuming this is a character in a story that you're familiar with, and I'd rather hear Tobi's kind of first thoughts separately. So what did you think of this when you first saw it?
He was sort of a good view first peek on sort of a deeper peek into how Romulans tick and how different they can be and how they have their different how do you say how their values can shift. And that's and he's sort of someone who sticks to his guns and has his principles, just like Picard. At this point in his career, he also sees that he's done some bad stuff. He's committed atrocities, but he's learned from it, and he's noticed that his government is making mistakes, and he's sort of even went so far as to make himself a nuisance to his government.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He went so far and then he was demoted and Romulated a lot upon, sneaky, fed false information, and he just took it with a stiff upper lip, you can say, and then said goodbye. But my principles stand, and I must say he's of course a hit.
Awesome, fair enough. We'll get into it a bit more when we talk about the episode, I'm sure. But so obviously I think the character is a hit because I think there's a lot of depth to him, and I find him one of the better kind of Romulan characters. Without getting too far into spoilers, I think he relates quite well to the episode Eye of the Needle that we looked at a few weeks ago, and the Romulan character in that, in terms of like what Star Trek does quite well is to make the enemy or the other seem a lot like us. And sort of show you the foibles, I suppose, of things like racism or on a larger scale speciesism, I suppose, but it's the same idea. It's a metaphor for the same thing, isn't it?
Of course,
But so that obviously a huge hit for me. But Tobi, I'm assuming this is the first exposure you've really had to a Romulan character, so I'd be interested to see how the character kind of hit you for the first time.
Yeah. First of all, I think it was even that exact scene where I was like, this looks like Rowan Atkinson. I was like, what the fuck?
That's distracting.
Like in the makeup. I don't know.
But okay.
Okay. Besides that, no, I really like this character in this episode, and what I really like I don't want to get too much onto the analysis, but on a writing level, that it's all about the neutral zone in this episode, and he is the neutral zone personified. And I think someone points that out. Was it Picard? I don't know. Like someone.
It's because he kind of tells him you get comfortable with being a defector because you can't just spend your life dancing on the border of the neutral zone or something like that.
Exactly,
Something
dancing
like
on the neutral zone. Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. Yes, he is the neutral zone there. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
So hit.
Fair enough. Awesome.
Wonderful.
Well, that'll conclude the hit or miss section. As I say, it was only like 4 little things that I wanted to do, just to have a little section to publicize and to keep us going, because we haven't had an episode for a while. And thanks to both of you for taking part, especially you, Tobi. As I said, it was all kind of new to you, but that's cool. So what I'm going to do then now is we're going to begin our analysis. And that'll be an analysis of this particular episode. As I said, it's the Next Generation Season 3 episode, The Defector. Before we get into the actual individual breakdown and give our thoughts, I do have a little bit of behind-the-scenes information. If you just bear with me, I'm going to try and read this out. And if you have any kind of thoughts, questions, or anything on it, feel free to jump in and let me know or ask questions. And I'll just start that from here and say that this is the second episode written by Ronald D. Moore. The episode earned him a position on the show's writing staff, and Moore would have a long association with Star Trek, staying with Next Generation through to its final season, then moving to Deep Space Nine, where he became a co-executive producer. And he also co-wrote the first 2 feature films based on the Next Generation, that being Generations and First Contact. So, yeah, this is something that fascinated me because I didn't know it until I was looking this episode up. The planet Nelvana 3 is apparently named after the popular Canadian animation studio Nelvana. Absolute madness. Nothing to do with anything. I just was like, is it? Okay, cool. In 2019, Screen Rant ranked this episode's character introduction, Admiral Jarrock, as the 10th most important Romulan of the Star Trek franchise. Later that year, they noted that The Defector was one of the top 10 important episodes to watch in preparation for the series Star Trek Picard. In 2020, Sci-Fi also recommended watching The Defector, in this case as background on Romulans for Picard. They note that the episode highlights the layers of trust and mistrust between the forces at work in the Romulan Star Empire, and how this complicated its relations with other Quadrant inhabitants. In 2020, Vulture recommended the episode to accompany viewing Star Trek Picard, noting how it establishes the Romulans' lust for power and tendency for deception. That's fair enough. We kind of touched on this earlier, but yeah, in addition to his regular role of Captain Picard, Patrick Stewart also played the role of the holodeck character of Michael Williams from Shakespeare's Henry V, Act 4, Scene 1 in the opening scenes of the episode. Stewart performed the role under heavy prosthetic makeup and requested this out of his love for Shakespeare. He is actually a member of the Royal Shakespeare Company, you won't be surprised to learn. He uses a regional English accent from the Black Country for the role, an area between Birmingham and Wolverhampton. His version is of the strong Gornal variety of Black Country dialect. And were any of us fooled? Did any of us just immediately not recognize Patrick Stewart in that? No.
It was just so obvious.
It really was, yeah. Well, I take it you recognized him straight away as well, Tobi.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny when he was out and it looked like one of those Photoshop things.
Yeah, when he's like acting with himself, because Captain Picard's there watching, and then it's clearly Patrick Stewart in the role. I see what you mean. Awesome. The writer Michael Piller noted that elements of the Shakespearean play were incorporated, as Elle said, into later scenes of the episode. There's a scene where Picard and Data are talking about how the crew is holding up, and then Picard says a line or two that echoes the play. Then in the confrontation with the Romulans, there are suggestions of Henry V in Picard's stance, bravery, and decisions, and what the argument is about. Piller said, if you're a musician, as I am, it's a trick that you throw into arrangements to echo other songs and play on a melody that reminds you of something else. I was very proud of that. So yeah, that's all I have on the behind the scenes, sort of in general. Yeah. So I'm going to dive into or lead us into the discussion of the episode. And again, if you're happening to be upon us for the first time here, we break this down into sections just for ease of kind of access. So it'll be starting off with things like writing and plot, then acting, direction, special effects, etc. But we don't stick rigidly to that. If a conversation goes a different way, we'll follow it along. It's just basically to keep my notes and to keep a little bit of structure, because that's just the way my brain works. Opening then with the writing and the plot, and I'm going to throw it open to either of you. Really, do either of you have any initial thoughts on the overall plot of this episode?
I think this episode is a masterclass of tight television writing, because they do so much on the writing level without it visually being high budget. You know what I mean? It's like we're all just in the ship, and it's like rooms, and it's not like huge special effects, which obviously you can't do because it would be too expensive to do on Netflix.
I mean, I hate to break it to you, Tobi, but this probably was quite an expensive episode for 1989 or whatever it was when it came out.
No, it was. Actually, it was the very first TNG episode that was aired in the 1990s. So it was aired in early 1990.
Fair enough. I joke, of course, but I mean, things like the Romulan ships and everything probably would have cost quite a bit in the 90s, but I see what you're saying in terms of it's not like what you would be used to nowadays, like a complete, space battles everywhere and stuff. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Tobi.
And the whole, of course, that would have been a matte painting and not a computer simulation of the valley that they see
the
on
Romulan,
the Romulan valley on the holodeck. Well, that would have been a matte painting, I guess.
Beautiful, though. It looks good. Yeah.
Yes, very well done.
Awesome. But yeah, Tobi, sorry, you were saying you think it's achieved a lot in sort of 45 minutes of quite tight writing then.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And did you have any particular highlights that sort of stand out amongst the episode for you?
I'm trying to think if there's like one scene that I'm thinking is above the rest. I think it's just really well done front to back, so I don't really have anything that's like that's the special scene.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I'll come back to you because I do have a question about kind of the structure and the way that it kind of pans out. But I'll come to you first, Elle, and just ask about because we haven't. Sorry, we interrupted you. Your general thoughts on the writing and how you feel it went.
Fine. What I generally like about it, like Tobi said, it's very tight. It's very well constructed. And as you already said in the introduction, like musicians or like designers, you have context and you connect things, create cohesion and themes. And that's exactly what this does very well. And what I also very much like about it, it shows that storytelling or good dramaturgy, you say in English, in German, Dramaturgie. Sort of the whole dramatic tension and the whole line of tension and then going back again. And what's interesting is it starts on a higher tension at the beginning and ends on pretty high tension, but in the middle you could say it's a bit softer and sort of goes into what a classic the dramatic line wouldn't do. The whole what do you say in English again? The whole climatic bits at the beginning and at the end, which is traditionally more in the middle.
I see. I think the structure of this, I think it basically uses the middle to kind of get to know the characters more.
Exactly, the world building.
Yeah.
Exactly. It gives us what's so good. It shows us higher stakes, excitement, then gives the viewer the chance to get to know the character, get to know the context, get to know the different reasons why things are happening the way they are from different angles. And then we go back into the crescendo of the episode with a wonderful, gleeful Commander Tomalak. Oh my gosh, he's just like this peak snarky Romulan. I always loved that character.
I have to ask this: Are you a Babylon 5 fan?
I never got back in the 90s. I know the actor was in it, and Babylon 5 is still on my list because back in the 90s, I didn't have the time to watch Babylon 5 when it was on. So, and then a couple of times when I was on holiday in England, Babylon 5 was on, but I didn't get into it properly because somehow didn't. But it's still on my list, and I know it's really, really good. And sometime I will fill that. In German, you say Bildungslücke, your educational gap, and I will fill that because I know. Babylon 5 is actually required reading, you could say.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I had to mention it because the B5 heads will kill me if I don't mention that Andreas Katsoulas, who plays Tomalak, is obviously Jakar from Babylon 5, one of the main characters. Exactly. And I say B5 fans, I also mean my co-host DK, who would kill me because he's a huge Babylon 5 fan. So.
And I know, and he's also been in Star Trek, had a couple of other roles over the different series.
Definitely. I know he was an Enterprise at one point, but I can't remember what role it was. I can just picture him in it.
That was co-genitor.
That's right. Yeah.
He was flying around.
Of course, he was in the movie of The Fugitive, which is where I mainly knew him from.
Yes, exactly. But he was also in 3 other episodes of The Next Generation. But his presence was just so... I just read now that he was actually only in 4 episodes, but I could have sworn he was in at least 10 episodes.
I put him on one of the miss sections in a previous episode, and I was equally surprised by that. And then, he's only in 4 episodes, and 2 of those he's not actually real. It's like an illusion.
Yes, but he's just got this huge presence that you just think, Tomalak's everywhere, in every warbird, lurking in the neutral zone to catch Picard.
Absolutely.
Yes, wonderful.
Yeah, cool.
But we'll talk more about him later.
Oh, absolutely, when we get to the character and acting parts, for sure.
Yes,
Excuse me. But to bring it back to the writing, one of the things I was going to say is that as well as kind of building up character in that middle part so that it has more impact when, what happens with Jarok, I think it also kind of, or at least in my case, it keeps you guessing. Because I can still remember the first time I saw this episode and just never being quite sure if, the defector was defecting or if it was a ploy. And I love the way that the episode doesn't really answer that until about halfway through, and just little silly things like the way he blows up his own ship. So that you're just like, hang on.
Because that's something that you usually don't get in that type of scene where they're in the briefing room. And the briefing room is usually the deep dive where it gets a bit calmer, usually, not always. And then suddenly this boom outside the window. And I thought, oh gosh, now that they really pulled one on us there. And it was just so signature Romulan. Don't leave anything behind.
And that's the thing. It is it's all very signature Romulan. So like I said, I never was quite sure if I could trust Jarok, because it's like, well, why did you blow up the ship? Why did you lie about who you are? And it wasn't, as I said, I was very kind of on the back foot and like never sure if he was genuine or not, which is the point, because that's obviously what the characters in the show would be thinking. But I was wondering if you kind of felt the same way about that at first, Tobi, or did you just always kind of assume he was on the level?
Yes, because I think the episode really did well in establishing that this is more of a complicated situation. So it didn't really make me feel like, oh, I should have just known it's more complicated from whatever else. I think it really did well establishing Romulans as a whole, and that I should be thinking more about this, and that made me thinking more about this because the show told me to do exactly that.
Absolutely.
So I wasn't really sure until never really.
Yeah.
And then in the end, it's like really long. And it really stretched this out. So you're like, what is going on?
See, I love the ending because I kind of that's the only time I'm actually sure what's going on, and when it finally reveals that he did believe everything that he was saying, but he was set up by the other Romulans, if you know what I mean. So he was basically a pawn in their games. but he was still on our side. It's just that he was given false information, and it's a lot to get your head around because it's kind of like bluff, double, triple agent kind of thing. But when you finally hear it all, you feel so sorry for the poor guy, I suppose. And it shows you, I think, as kind of I alluded to there, that the Romulans, represented by Tomalak as a whole, are just that sneaky as to like use that opportunity of like, ooh, we want to go to a war, but we don't want to start it. So if we come up with some sly trick to lure them into the neutral zone and say they were the aggressors, so I love all that. And my favorite scene in the episode has always been the fact that Picard has secretly been contacting the Klingons to back him up. So,
yes. That was some brilliant counter-Romulation, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
That Picard, of course, using of course, the Alliance, but also his Worf to be able to get a better contact at that point into the Klingon Empire.
Oh yeah.
And then in the end, just showing our wonderfully sort of super inflated, gloating Tomalak. That then, well, I'm going to pull a sneaky on you too, girl.
I love it, and I love that Tomalak's response to that is just like, oh, I do enjoy these chess games with
I will see you again next. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Wonderful.
Yeah. It's like he's not even upset at being caught out. He's like, oh, you sneaky, you got me.
Yes, like, oh, you're playing on my level. I can respect you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. What did you think about that, Tobi? Did you like me just cheer when Picard looks like everything's lost and then he just goes, Mr. Wolf, and then a bunch of Klingons decloaked to back them up?
I mean, I probably had less of a reaction than yours, but I still thought it was really funny.
Yes. Do you know the significance of the Klingons in Star Trek? Tobi, did maybe through your dad or no? So
no.
Did something up. Okay,
no.
Of course. Yeah, because when you know the whole history of the Federation and the Klingons and this, it sort of builds up on so many stories that have been told over from TOS through TNG now. So and all the movies in between. It just builds on so much lore, just that scene alone. It's beautiful.
Yeah. On a pure basic level, though, I just love the fact that like you don't. It's so obvious, but you don't think of like. There's other species that have cloaking devices, and the Romulans really aren't thinking too cleverly of just like, well, the Starfleet or whatever don't have cloaks, so we've got them, and then Picard just getting them with their own technology, like, oh, well, here you go.
And they just happen to be allies with the Klingons.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But I love it. And of course, we know the Klingons kind of don't get on with the Romulans, which would be new information to Tobi, obviously, but so we appreciated that, but yeah. I did appreciate that there was a slight reference to the episode The Enemy, which was only a few episodes before this as well. But not enough that it would have left you lost, I'm assuming, Tobi, that you just didn't... You didn't pick up on the fact that there was a reference to that
no.
I think the Romulan guy mentions to Crusher, it's nice that you've got experience of Romulan medicine. And she just says, like, I had an incident, a chance to study it a few weeks ago, and then looks at Wolf.
That line.
Yeah.
I didn't question it further, but I noticed that line.
Yeah. It's another episode that was another fantastic episode as well that happened a few weeks before this one. So, but again, I like that because it kind of proves the lie to people that say that like, oh, there's no ongoing sort of threads in Star Trek. It's too episodic, but also it doesn't leave you completely lost. Like you wouldn't question it as you just heard it as like, oh well, it's another unseen adventure, I guess, and it's nothing of it. So yeah,
I mean that's just network television.
Yeah, well, exactly. Absolutely. So, and I just think I do like as well, by the way, that when I was saying like the reveal of the Klingons seems to come out of nowhere and you cheer for it, but then only watching the episode back do you realize that it's seeded like 2 or 3 times in the episode. So it doesn't actually come out of nowhere because you get Picard calling Worf to the ready room and then you get the Bortas wanting to speak to Worf privately. And you only know what that is looking back. It's
and
so
Worf having to go somewhere and do something, and they're just you don't think of it anymore. And then in the end, they just what's also, of course, from the music so good is that they put in the Klingon theme very shortly, very briefly. The music, it's absolutely brilliant.
Awesome. So the last thing to talk about then with the writing would just be kind of the very sad and kind of tragic ending. And did it hit you quite as strongly, either of you guys? Because it always kind of makes me feel very sort of sad and, sympathetic for Jarok.
Yes, I would say, of course, it's tragic. That's what it's supposed to be. It's like a Shakespeare tragedy on the big stage of politics, and but it's done very well.
It's another thing that's been set up, of course, because while it's just trying to kind of leave you questioning whose side Jarok is on, you have seen him playing with this little sort of capsule thing in his shoe, and you think it might be a weapon or something kind of to sabotage, and then learn it's actually like a suicide pill, basically, at the very end. So it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of sad and tragic, but there is a nice sort of, a veneer of hope underneath that, with the maybe one day we will be able to deliver his letter. What did you think of the ending then, Tobi?
Yeah, I really loved this with the letter. That was really what got me. And it just became clear in that moment when everything was revealed that he really has no option left, how the cards are played in a sense. Because he doesn't even have value as some sort of spy anymore, because it was all a lie anyway. So it's and he
exactly, because they were giving him
false
info.
And he destroyed his ship. He destroyed his relationship with the other Romulans. So it's there is no way out.
Yeah, exactly, which is devastating. And I mean, that kind of thing did happen back in the days of spies and countries at war and things, which is all the more kind of sad, I guess. And again, it's partly performance, which I may as well start with this because we're moving on to the acting part. But just that moment when James Sloyan, I think it is, who plays Jarok, just when he finally realizes what's happened and on the bridge, he's like, I just sacrificed it all for nothing. It was for absolutely nothing. And
yes, that was
devastating.
Yes. He just notices that as someone being of that culture, noticing that, yes, my people are just doing what my people do, and I was questioning things. Of course, they would then, when they've got more influence and power over me, they will do what they always do. They Romulate.
Yes, exactly.
And that was just such showing him that there's actually, in that type of system, hardly any way out, especially if he then kills himself, which is also by the book for a Romulan.
One of the other great things about the performance is that it really brings it home to being all about his family. And it's one, excuse me, it's one of my favorite lines in Star Trek when he's like, my daughter's going to grow up thinking that I'm a traitor, but at least she'll grow up. And it's so kind of heartfelt and beautiful. And you're just kind of like, oh, what do you think of the actor then, James Sloyan, in the role of Jarok?
Yeah, Tobi, you first, because I think I'll have more to say.
Besides everything that was just said now, which I'm not going to recap, one thing I really loved is that in every scene you kind of see the gears turning of how do I navigate all this very complicated situation, and I loved how you really could see it in the acting. That it's what am I doing here? How am I talking to this person? What do I have to say now?
Yeah,
to get people to believe him.
Yes, for sure. And the way he's so determined with this whole nothing else matters. You just have to check out this base because trust me, it's going to cause a war. And he has to go through all the rigmarole of them being like, tell me all about the Romulan fleet movements and all of your secrets. And he's like, look, it doesn't matter. Just please, I'm telling you to go and check out this base. And that kind of desperation, I think, is a good part of the performance as well.
Yeah,
but
and he actually says one or two things that he lets one or two little infos, not important infos, slip to as kind of tactic to get them to move on from this. So
for sure. Awesome scene as well. What about you then, Elle?
Yes, the same. It just shows that it's acted, with a lot of conviction, conflict, and the conflict between his conscience that he found over the years and his duty to Romulus, his patriotism to Romulus, that he even sees that the current government isn't doing what it should be doing to let's say further the sort of make Romulus. Also, how do you say this in English? Sometimes my bilingual brain.
If you're stuck, you can say it in German, and maybe Tobi can translate.
Okay.
No. It's better this way. It's just sort of further the cause and develop the country. Das Land voranbringen in German, that you just bring it further, that you sort of foster this home country, this exactly, and take care of it, and that the current Romulan government is not doing that. It's good for its own country, and is actually maybe even betraying itself and what it should stand for, and that's why he chose this sort of more extreme plan to then do what his sort of the higher ups were wanting him to do, to defect and get him into the neutral zone, so that then he could be the pawn on the chessboard to start a war with the Federation. Because there's a nice word in German. I don't know if do you say saber rattling in English?
Yes, we do.
Yes,
absolutely.
You do say Säbelrasseln, and that sort of and it's this classic saber rattling, and also in this in the inception of this story was also it's actually also like the Cuba crisis.
There's a lot of things that were happening around that time, actually, because I remember it being
end of the Cold War when that was written.
For sure.
It was written just at the time when the Iron Curtain had fallen, and that was just this massive turning point in global history.
I think it was around. It was roughly around the same time as the first Iraq War and the Falklands War as well, and those were things where it was kind of it was always looked on though as like, the countries that were not looking after themselves, even though they were falling on hard times, and as you said, that were more about we're going to put our money into military power and showing our strength, which is exactly as you said, the Romulans, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and not really nurturing the nation, you could say.
Yeah.
And is more about spoils of war and this sort of public glory, but it's very hollow, and it's not very safe for people, especially thinking about his sort of thinking towards future generations.
To move on to the acting, we've kind of talked about, obviously, James Sloyan, and we mentioned already Andreas Katsoulas. So the only two other characters I think of note that are worth mentioning in the episode would be Brent Spiner as Data and Patrick Stewart as Picard, who we've kind of touched on. So, and again, Tobi, I'd like to come to you first, if you don't mind, and just ask what you thought of those two characters in this little 45-minute vignette that you saw of them.
Yeah. I think I have more to say about Picard, to be honest.
Okay, right.
I think he played the counterpart very well, and with him as well, you could really see the different options running through his head and different ideas and what to do, but also just in his viewpoint, more of a, how do you say it, like a duty, like I need to Google a word.
That's fine, go for it.
The responsibility he has about about his ship, about his ship and the, what is it called, the nation, empire, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. A state, a nation, an empire.
Yeah, and I mean that relates to why Henry VIII is in the episode, because he is the king.
Henry V.
Henry V. Sorry, man. I don't know why that came from. My mistake. Yes. But yeah, that's the whole point, is that he is the king with all of his people's life on the line, and the decision ultimately on his shoulders. And
exactly. And he exactly was Picard in that situation, asking Data about the crew. It was Jarok thinking about his people and his family, the same thing.
I mean, one of the ongoing threads throughout Next Generation and the movies is all about Data's kind of quest to be more human.
Human, exactly, human.
Yeah,
not
but there
Romulan,
are
not Klingon, human.
Well, I mean, effectively just emotional or just living like not so much like a machine. But I like that there are little moments, even in episodes like this, like his conversation with LaForge about understanding. Decisions are based on evidence, but also on gut feelings, and how he could never really understand that. Or that was another one that I've completely forgotten. Obviously, like the idea of the study of Shakespeare, which Picard tells him that's the finest way to study the human condition.
The human condition, exactly, and that of course shows that he might be an android, a machine, but he is of course seeking the proximity to humanity, to being like that. So, and it's not a criticism, it's just something that you can find in the layers, that even though something, it's also, you could say, gives an extra layer to Data of knowing there's a certain veneer of something, especially like with the Romulan, with Jarok, and then there are layers underneath, and then you can go look at them. Yeah,
I like personally that I think, to me, I perceive a certain level of innocence to Data, because he wouldn't necessarily have the kind of racial bias or the nervous kind of prejudice about the Romulan. He just kind of takes everything on face value of what he knows. So it's kind of, that's how he kind of almost befriends him in 10 Forward, and then shows him, this is what Romulus is like in the holodeck, and that's what ultimately spurs Jarok to tell the truth about who he is and reveal everything. And again,
exactly, because he sees, he also, when he looks at this valley, he also sees what's at stake for him, and it gives him the push, the emotional push. And when you look at Data, who's of course towards him actually really non-biased in that way, or very much less biased, you have Worf echoing from the enemy, of course, very aggressive, and at the same time, Jarak saying, why do you have this Klingon fatah surfing in a Starfleet uniform? And
then Riker swinging Romulan back at him, which is quite brilliant as well.
Calling him a Varul. That is brilliant. And that's, I think, even though exactly Riker, Troy, and Geordi and Dr. Crusher have less screen time, but even they are just employed in the writing just so well.
It's the clever usage of the characters, even. I mean, to a smaller degree, even like everybody stays true to themselves. So even moments like when they ask Dr. Crusher, could the wounds be self-inflicted? And she's kind of like, they were very bad burns. It's like, they could be, but she's almost not quite believing that somebody could do that to themselves, because she's a healer,
And then she does sort of lean into what it could happen, because she knows that Romulans go to extremes for their plans and plotting. And even though from her point of view, she of course also felt for him for having to go to that extreme.
Of course, So how did you feel about the usage of Data and his kind of innocence and quest for humanity, Tobi?
I thought it was... Tobi, exactly,
Sorry.
I did pick up on it, but it was not really where my interest was.
I see.
My focus was, so I was more like, that's a nice subplot, I guess, but I wasn't really...
because everything was really more focused on the tension of the war situation, so it perhaps would have felt a bit.
Because also with Data, you have of course this very typical scene for a TNG episode where Data and Geordi are talking about the fine nuances of understanding humanity while in engineering, and those sort of heart-to-hearts they have in so many episodes while in engineering, and Data following LaForge around asking these questions, and that's just something that's so essential to the next generation.
I have this actual quote here, which is, I don't know, Data, my gut tells me we ought to be listening to what this guy's trying to tell us. Your gut, it's just a feeling, an instinct, intuition. But those qualities would interfere with rational judgment, would they not? You're right, sometimes they do. then why not rely strictly on the facts? Because you just can't rely on the plain and simple facts. Sometimes they lie. That is the most circular conversation you could possibly. And it sums up the episode of like, honestly, it's a complete gamble. We just don't know.
Because if you think something is a fact, it still may be a fact on a certain level, but there still could be other facts layered underneath that can contradict them. And it just shows how humans view things maybe more at face value than Romulans would.
Definitely. And it feeds back into Picard's responsibility and how he has to bring his self to bear. You know, like I said, I think it sums it up perfectly in that Shakespeare quote that he says to himself, where he just says, now, if these men do not die well, it will be a black matter for the king who led them to it. Like he's got the burden of like the guilt potentially, or even when he says like, oh, we have 48 hours to prevent a war or possibly to start one.
Yes.
Like, man, the pressure of that would be, I could never be a captain. I'd be in the corner just rocking back and forth like, too much pressure, guys. Jeez. But,
yes.
Cool. So any other thoughts on the acting before I move us to just a little bit on direction and things then?
Oh, we can go on to the direction.
I have just, again, a little bit on the direction then, which I thought was a little bit interesting. Just one sort of long paragraph, which is to say that the director, Robert Shearer, recalls mixed feelings about the episode. He said, there was a problem on that one. We were a little long, and 2 scenes where the defector was interviewed were cut. I loved shooting that because I had to find 2 totally different ways to shoot an interrogation scene. I felt I accomplished that rather well, but unfortunately, because of time, they had to pull one of them out. The actor who played the defector, James Sloyan, was excellent. His feeling about The Next Generation was that it's the only place left where you can do Shakespearean acting and make it work for you on television. Because of the characters, I know, right? Because of the character's nature and size, you can bring something to it that you can't do anywhere else on television. It had a nice anti-war message, but it didn't preach the message. It told the story. It was important. It tried to be subtle, but made sure the point was made. Which I can't really add much to that because it just basically sums it all up perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, but what was it else? Yes, and I think with the direction that he did go into sort of outside of your usual expectations of what you see in TNG, like with this explosion of the ship outside. You usually don't see things blowing up outside unless it is out of the bridge view window.
Yeah, and not even to focus on it. Like, it was in the background. It wasn't like the camera went and focused on what was happening. It was just kind of like, which made it more of a shock because it was in the middle of just a conversation and everyone's leaving and it's mid-sentence and then this just explosion happens.
Yes. This sort of jump start. That's something that may also made this episode quite notable for me, just from this in German they say haptic, the feeling, the texture of it.
Oh yeah, and I think that's a good way to put it, because I think there is, and I put it to the director as well as, you know, obviously the acting and the writing, but I think there's a sense of tension that you've already referenced a few times throughout the episode where you know they're kind of on high alert and there's a lot at stake here.
Yes, and it's even said that every Starfleet ship has been put on yellow alert.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Oh boy. So what did you think about the direction then, Tobi? Did anything stand out to you from that?
Yeah, just a general thing, because how hectic the episode is, the direction is pretty slow most of the time. Like, it's not really jumping or doing any crazy stuff. Especially towards the end, it's like very long scenes.
Yeah, so, that's the style of the television back then,
No, but I really like the contrast between the two.
Yeah, and I think that it emphasizes the fact that this is really more of a, like I said, more of a chess game as opposed to just all out, I'm going to shoot you and then they're going to shoot back. And so it wasn't really a battle in that sense. It was more of a battle of wits. Who could be out clever, who could out Romulate, to use Elle. So
feel free to just use it without you don't need to credit me either.
Oh, I will. We've got a few Romulan episodes to look at, so I probably will. But so I mean, there's not the direction in a way it kind of doesn't stand out, because as we've said in other episodes, I think that's when the direction's at its best, when it lets the story, do the talking, and it's not overly flashy and it's not like in your face distracting. But what there is great. I mean, even the outside kind of shots. I know this is more VFX as well, but the outside shots of the way that the Romulan ships decloak and then the Klingon ships do, and you've got this kind of beautiful like panorama view of the Enterprise, flanked
all
by
in
Romulans
between
and
everything. That was
exactly.
And you,
It's
of course,
yeah.
have these three big powers of the Alpha Quadrant there, which is also these sort of galactic, not geopolitical, but sort of galactic political. You geopolitically look at it, you could say Federation, the West, and then Russians, the Klingons, who had already then started
We've touched on that, and then the Romulans are kind of the communist Chinese.
Like the Chinese,
kind of
exactly. Like that, of course, also have their very own agendas, their own logic, their own way of leading their state. Very much, yes. And that you would have those three powers together, and of course, Star Trek science fiction, as Ursula K. Le Guin says so cleverly, is that science fiction is always about the now, is always about reality, and otherwise there wouldn't be any meaningful stories to tell there. On that
it's always a reflection of things in our real world, but through the lens of like a metaphor or
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the last section then, before we get to the kind of the audience response and then our kind of final thoughts and things, was just music and sound. But I'll be honest, I haven't got any notes because I was enjoying the episode. And again, the music didn't fully stand out. It just seemed like not bad, but very much just an average next-gen musical score.
I always enjoyed this sort of synthesizer spiking around, especially when you see the D flying through space and it goes this beautiful sort of tinkling synthesizer. And of course, what did stand out is when the Klingons decloaked and the Klingon theme came in. Of course, that was a formality that had to be done, of course, and that was something that stood out. But otherwise, I just personally enjoy TNG music.
Yeah, same, and I'm assuming nothing really stood out to you, Tobi, maybe.
I really liked the track before the credits. There was like some music track going on.
Yeah, because it's I know what you mean. It's kind of, it was a tense because the ship had been chased, and then there was kind of a sort of calm tension to that moment when we're kind of questioning what's going on. So yeah, I think I know what you mean with that.
Yes, with this sort of underscoring that.
Well, I'll move us along then to the next section, which would be our audience response, or the section that I like to call subspace communications.
Incoming transmission.
And so, I as always, I put out a sort of a social media post asking for just anyone's thoughts on the episode, The Defector. Once again, the majority of these, in fact, all of them, I think, came from Facebook groups. We don't have loads, like we got a lot more for Star Trek Nemesis for our last episode, but there's a few things, and I think they're all quite notable. To give you an idea of the episode's sort of reputation, I'll just read what I've got here. So the first one is from Nerdy Up North Facebook group. Jason Russell, who just says, there are 4 stars. Yes, references.
Yes, yes.
Because I always ask, what would you rate out of 5 stars, I should say as well. So, from Star Trek Ships of the Line, Daniel Heaton says 5. I always enjoyed Picard versus Tomalak. Jeff 6 says it's the best episode of Next Generation. James Lawler says great episode, 5 out of 5. Charlotte Chavon just gave 5 actual stars. Richard Brewer says 5 without a shadow of a doubt. And Jason Solomon also says 5. Let's see. From Star Trek Forever group, Eric C. Petrie says the Defector gets a 5 or 6, equals highly recommended on my scale. Really good episode and is one of the easiest Trek episodes, highlighting how not every person belonging to a current enemy of the Federation is a, quote, bad guy. This episode came after the episode The Enemy, and together they hint that there could be peace with the Romulans at some point in the not too distant future. Daniel Ring just leaves a beautiful quote from the episode, which just says, there comes a point in your life that you cannot know where you look at the first smile of your baby girl and you realize that you must change the world for her, for all children. Yes.
Oh, yes, that was very, very nice. Good quote.
Yeah, I'm assuming that means he likes the episode. So yeah, Will Devine says total hit, 5 stars. Probably my favorite episode of Next Generation. Admiral Jarok is an intriguing and tragic character, willing to go to great lengths to preserve the peace, even sacrificing his own life and ability to return home. Tomalak is an awesome antagonist in any episode he appears in. The greatest moment of the episode is the climax, showcasing just how great a leader and strategist Captain Picard is, and his ability to see all the possibilities when dealing with the sneaky Romulans. And I think finally, from Red Shirts and Runabouts group, Ryan Levinger leaves quite a long one and says, not sure I could rate it. I hate having to do that, but it's a great episode. James Sloyana just delivers, and he does so as Jarok, the Defector, and I love watching his struggle between duty, loyalty, and conscience. His interactions with the crew, particularly Data, are great and such good character work. While it's a tale of intrigue and inner struggle, it's also a tragedy, since he realizes his defection turns out to be for nothing. Of course, I also love Picard's badass moment when it looks when the Enterprise is screwed, but then he signals the Klingon birds of prey to decloak and evens the odds, then walks out of the situation with an appropriate smugness. Classic Picard badassery. So, yeah. Oh, and I believe that's it. Yeah, I'm just double checking, but yeah, I don't have anything else. So that's all we heard from the audience, which I think pretty much universally beloved. I don't think anybody was overly critical. So I'm going to move us to the next bit where we'll give our favorite character, moment, and line, and then our conclusion and score out of 5 Starfleet Deltas. And then we can get out of here and, warp on to other adventures. So, first of all, I'm going to go around and ask everyone's favorite character from this episode and a little explanation as to why, if you could. Tobi, I'm going to come to you first on this one.
Yeah. I mean, this episode has one star character. I think it's pretty obvious that it's Admiral Alida Jarok.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very much his episode. There is no debating about that, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, it does do the work to make you care about him, to be fair. He's not one-dimensional, is he? So, yeah. What about you, El? Would you agree?
Yes, I would very much agree with that. He was, of course, the center of the episode, and of course, as someone who was trying to steal its thunder, was of course Tomalak, and a great introduction to Tomalak being this, Tomalak is a bit mustache twirling, but not too much. He's got this,
I know what you mean.
a bit of levity about him that's not too much of a ham-fisted villain. He's more of an antagonist. I
think he's a good foil for Picard because obviously Patrick Stewart by nature is quite theatrical anyway.
Exactly, and both of them are theatrical, and so I think of course Jarok, and then Tomalak, of course. Yes.
Cool. I agree with you guys. I think it's Jarok, as I said, because he's actually given a lot of depth, and we're made to empathize with him, and at the end it's his story. And I do just love the ending of, like, if there are more brave people like him willing to kind of step out and stand up, so to speak, that maybe we'll have a good future. Excuse me. So what was your favorite moment in the episode then, Tobi?
Moment. I already jumped ahead to line, so I didn't think about moment. Now I'm just getting steamrolled. Wait a minute. I'd say the towards the end, before it's revealed what is actually the case, where they jump into the neutral zone, and it's like nothing's there. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah, and there's no signs of the planet having an establishment or anything, and it's I see what you mean. Cool. What about you then, Elle?
Yes, well, of course, this dissolving of what could have been the secret war plan of the Romulans, which turned out to be bogus, and I very much enjoyed Data taking Jarok to the Seatal still then to the holodeck, and then when he made this snap decision please tell Captain Picard Admiral Jarok wants to speak to him. And this sort of snap moment, that was, of course, something that engages you a lot. And I'm also someone who, of course, likes sort of these peeks into everyday life. And, of course, always enjoy Geordie and Data bouncing off each other. I love that. And what also, as someone from Central Europe, always finds very funny one was when Jarok was in his quarters and wanted a glass of cold water, and he asked for the computer asked for the temperature, and he said 12 onkiums, and the computer says, this is my low-key favorite line is, this system is calibrated to the Celsius metric system. I love that because
I love his response, which is just like, just give me something to the cold side of whatever system you use.
You use just this, just from the everyday real life thing is, yes, this system is calibrated to the Celsius metric system because it can be someone bilingual, and I have all my computer things, all my IT running in English, and I often have to then look for some way to turn Fahrenheit and other measurements into metric measurements, please.
Bless. Fair enough. That's fair enough. Well, I'll stop you there before you go through the whole episode in moments.
Yes.
But my favorite moment, I've kind of basically already revealed. It's Picard's, the reveal of the Klingon ships that he'd had up his sleeve the entire time. I just think that's glorious. I love that moment. Great. So, and then finally, Tobi, you kind of preempted it. What was your favorite line in the episode?
I can't re-quote it. You have to do that because you can remember that better. But the one you said earlier today about the
Shakespeare, neutral, dancing on the neutral zone.
That one.
Oh, I can't remember it exactly, but I know what you mean. Yeah, you
must take it earlier.
Yeah, it's something like you must be comfortable with that. You are a defector. You can't just spend your life dancing on the neutral zone. Make a choice, something like that. But I see what you mean. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Elle, what about you?
Yeah, I think that one is on the higher key, not low key, is very good. And of course, where he also then mirrors and requotes Henry V then about his terrible decisions of taking his people into battle and death.
Yes. If they don't die well, it will be a black matter for the king.
A black matter, exactly, yes.
Yes, lovely. See, mine feels kind of churlish because I love all of those, but as I said, related to kind of my favourite moment, my favourite line is just when Tomalak says he expects more than empty threats, and Picard replies, then you shall have it.
Then you shall have it. Just so easy. Okay. Here you are. I will serve that to you now, my dear.
Romulate checkmate.
Yes, exactly. Wonderful.
Right then, so that, as I say, all that remains to do is to give our conclusion and our score out of 5 or 5 Starfleet Deltas. Should I go first, or would one of you guys like to go first?
You go first, you folks. You go first, and us folks will go later.
Yeah, apologies. Mine are usually quite long-winded, and I just tend to like to get my thoughts in gear. But I'll give you mine first. Then mine just says it's a top episode that does what Star Trek does best: humanizing the enemy, emphasizing the similarities over the differences, and showing the futility of war and jingoistic pride. Along the way, there's room for some beautiful, subtle exploration of other characters and their roles, especially Picard and Data. It's also, on a surface level, just a really engrossing spy story that kept me guessing about the truth of everything right until that final glorious reveal from Picard. He might be an optimist, but he's not a fool. The last moments hurt because we've come to know this Romulan as a person with relatable worries, loves, and dreams, which, of course, he always was. The final line with its sad, truthful ambiguity, but note of touching hope, really sums things up nicely. Things aren't always peachy, but as long as there are good people willing to be brave and stand up for what truly matters, then maybe we can all come together. Amen. In the words of John Lennon, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Episodes like this resonate because they show that others feel like we do, even when we feel most hopeless, and they shine that light of hope. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. And I gave it 5 out of 5. So yeah, 5 stars for me. I love this episode. I can't give it less than perfection, I'm afraid.
Yes.
So,
Tobi, you tell us what is your rating?
Good that my summaries are always very short because I can't recap
Sorry.
everything I said. No, because I just am unable to recap everything I said. I already forgot what I said 10 minutes ago. So I really like this episode a lot. I really like the metaphoric ballpark it's playing in, the very Cold War-esque plot. The acting is really good from all the main people in the episode. Yeah, and there were just so many great moments, and I don't want to recap everything I already said
That's fine.
at the end of this episode. So I'm just going to give a score. The score is 10s across the board, 5 out of 5.
I know that quote. I know that quote. Yes. I also must say it was 10s across the board, or 5 Starfleet Deltas, 5 out of 5. And,
wow.
Yes, and everything that you said, Michael, of course, especially with just knowing things aren't always as bad as you think they are if you look at the big picture, and also if you are willing to look at all the possibilities you might have, or even just stand up for something so that someone else can benefit from it. And it's not only for your own benefit, like him giving his career, his life, to potentially make his daughters, his families, and all other Romulans' life maybe a little bit easier and better. And that's brilliant. And otherwise, what I must say was, I think once it was back on Twitter, I used to in German post these Star Trek ship posts, and I made these ship posts about with sort of screenshots of Tomalak and Picard, sort of with drag queen wigs on and crowns, and throwing shade at each other because those are 2 shady queens.
Oh yeah.
And they read each other to filth.
That's definitely what they, instead of saying, activate cloaking device, they should now just all say sachet away.
Sachet away, exactly. Sachet away. Oh my God, yes.
To finish off with a little bit of housekeeping, then it's obviously going to be quite easy to work out the average for this episode, because we all gave it 5s, and so the final score for TNG's The Defector is naturally a perfect 5 out of 5, perfect score.
Exactly.
Can't say fairer than that. So
yeah, wonderful.
Awesome. I've really enjoyed chatting this episode. It's one of my favourites, as I said, and I think we've had a couple of great guests. One long-time sort of Trekkie geek and one new person to Trek. So it hasn't put you off watching any more episodes in future then, Tobi?
I mean, we first have to get through Buffy.
Yeah.
Oh, you're watching Buffy, okay, yes. But then you've got so much time, then you can sometimes just go and watch Star Trek, and there's so much to watch, so many flavors, so much amazing stuff in there. You will have actually, I can say I nearly envy you because you've potentially got such a great viewing journey in front of you, Tobi. Brilliant.
Awesome. Well, thanks for agreeing to do it, Tobi. And hopefully, maybe we'll have you on again some other time and make you watch another random episode.
Yes!
But, maybe. That's great. No, thanks for doing this. And I'm really glad you did like the episode, because I'd have been at a loss because it's one of the best ones if you hadn't liked it.
Could you imagine? So, I'm just here shitting on this episode.
But now I'd like to know what he'd also with Romulans, what he'd say about In the Pale Moonlight, because that's also one you can watch without knowing all the context.
Absolutely. Well, maybe we're going to. We'll see.
Yes.
But
it's called Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. Adrienne, which you know, Mike, has also tasked me in private messages to watch an episode like 2 months ago, and I didn't until now.
Which episode of Star Trek do you mean?
Yes, she asked me to watch. Oh, from Next Generation, season 5, episode 2, Darmok. She wanted me to.
Oh, yes.
Great episode. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. That is really, really good. That's such a classic. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, you probably would appreciate that as well, since it's all about kind of language and differences and things. So
yeah, it's also about also going deeper into meaning of sort of meaning and the way meaning is conveyed. Wonderful.
Yeah, but I've just realised that would obviously fit into your wheelhouse fantastically, Elle, wouldn't it? Really, context and
yes, awesome. Of course, that's wonderful. That episode,
brilliant. Well, so all that remains then is for me to say thank you so much to my two guests and for anybody who's listened all the way through this episode. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. And as I always do, I'm going to come to each of you and ask, Elle, I'll start with you. Is there anywhere where people can find you on the internet that you'd like me to shout out?
I'm currently not very active, very much. I'm sort of more in a private group on Mastodon. But this is one of the things where I thought, I'll come out a bit and talk a bit about Star Trek. But I'm very involved with my work and other things that I just don't have that much energy to be publicly online these days much.
Oh, that's fair enough. I mean, our co-host DK isn't online at all either. He just lets me do it all, so that's fair enough. So, and do you have a podcast of your own that you wanted to shout out at all?
Yes, of course. It's it's German and it's called Trekgasm, and it's trekgasm.de is our webpage. I think that's it. I'll just check it.
If nothing else, I can always get Tobi to tune in because he'll understand it.
Yes, exactly. But we have been thinking about we have been thinking about what's it called again? We've been thinking about doing some things in English too, because all of us can't speak English.
Okay.
And Tobi, if you want to, we like to have guests. Sometime, if you feel like it, if you've watched a bit more Star Trek, you are very welcome to join us.
I will get in touch. I really need to get to Buffy first. If I start too many things at once, I just lose track over everything.
Yeah, I understand that very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pass on if you want, you guys. I can pass on each other's email addresses if you want to stay in touch. Just to
fine.
Chat.
Yeah.
That's great. And Tobi, anywhere that you want to shout out where people can find you, or just in our Discord?
I mean, obviously in the Discord. I'm most active in the Discord. Otherwise, for anime stuff, I'm on Blue Sky, Dark Sonic on Blue Sky.
Absolutely, yeah, Dark Sonic. That's right, isn't it, on Blue Sky? So. Yeah, and as I said, now hopefully if I edit it in and remember to do so, there'll be an image on screen right now showing you all the places you can find me or the podcasts. I won't go through them all. You can always pause and glance at it if you're on YouTube. If not, if you're listening on a podcast platform of choice, it'll always be, our link tree will always be in the episode description, which will direct you to everything else, because we're on pretty much everything, but for the most part, you can either look up my name, Michael Wilson, or hit or miss Star Trek podcast, and you'll find us. So... we are technically on a sort of break at the moment. This was an episode just to break up, to give us one episode a month at least to keep putting out, to keep people interested. But we will be coming back with more episodes quite soon. If you bear with me, I'll double check what the actual dates will be for you. So we are resuming on June the 30th, and we're going right through and finishing off with a 5 or 6 more Romulan-themed episodes. So come and join us on June the 30th when myself, Alison, and Ken Sweeney will be looking at the Enterprise episode Minefield. So,
that's a good one. Oh, yes.
Awesome. And thanks again for joining me. And hopefully we'll have both of you on again at some point soon, because it's been a great conversation. So
I would be thrilled to also do some more podcasting in English for a change. Brilliant.
That's fine. Well, anytime. We'll keep in touch. We've got each other's details. And so,
exactly.
Always good to meet fellow Trekkies. And in the meantime, just remember, we are Starfleet. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
You have been listening to the Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast, hosted by Michael Wilson and DK. Produced and edited by Mike Wilson. Additional material by DK. Please remember to like this episode and spread it throughout subspace. Subscribe to the Hit or Miss YouTube channel and follow us online. Links to all of our social media pages can be found via the link tree listed in the episode's description. For any queries or to apply to be a guest on the show, you can also email homstartrek@gmail.com. This podcast is part of the Mike's Podcasts Network. You can listen to this and our sister podcasts on all good podcast providers by searching for Mike's Podcasts. Hit or Miss Podcast was based on an idea by Michael Wilson and Will Templer. Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll be back, but for now, hailing frequencies closed.
Better warp out of here at once, maximum speed.